Rage Against the Machine is arguably the most politically charged band to ever perform. It's been nearly 2 decades since they first became active, and a lot has happened in that time. The socio-political climate of the 90s created a situation where a band like Rage Against the Machine had to exist. They gave an emotional outlet to people all over the world, until their breakup in 2000. They came back and played a number of shows from 2007 to 2011, but we haven't seen much of them since, and nobody has been able to replicate the energy that they emitted. So why in the year 2020 is Rage Against the Machine coming back? Before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed and follow us on Spotify for more in-depth music discussion, as well as weekly playlists. Rage has the come-up story that every band dreams of. You can still find videos of them playing shows that are smaller than level 1 on Guitar Hero. And when you watch them, it's incredible to see how much energy they had while performing for such small audiences. Imagine seeing Killing in the Name performed at your local record store. They had something special and gave an artistic voice to many of the frustrations that people had at that time. 6 months before their debut album released were the infamous Los Angeles riots, which were in response to the acquittal of the 4 police officers who beat Rodney King within an inch of his life. Now, let's look at Killing in the Name. Killing in the name of! This line ends on a blink. Lead vocalist Zach De La Rocha doesn't believe that you can justify murder. Whether it's murder in the name of God, ideology, or the law, murder is murder. This insinuates that members of the police force are also involved with white supremacy groups such as the Ku Klux Klan, who are known to burn crosses as a means of intimidation. Do what they told ya. Do what they told ya. The police justification for beating Rodney King was his refusal to exit his vehicle. De La Rocha is telling us that the authorities will use fear and violence in order to make you subservient to them. The message here is clear. The police will justify murdering civilians by saying they were intoxicated, disobeying orders, or anything really, in an attempt to justify ending a life forever. By wearing the badge, they're the chosen whites is a reference to the earlier statement that there are racist cops on the streets and that they're untouchable due to the badge that they wear. But Zach will not be controlled. He won't give in to fear or intimidation tactics, and he encourages us to follow his lead when he chants, In the last several years, we've seen numerous examples of excessive force by police. In many cases, the officers involved are not indicted because the Justice Department doesn't want to go after law enforcement. The frustration with this has led to the formation of groups like Black Lives Matter. Now, I know there are a lot of people who get hung up on that name, but what they're fighting for is something that I think most people can get behind. I don't think most people would have a problem with rooting out racial profiling and police brutality. No, not all cops are bad cops. Even Killing in the Name says some of those that work forces. But we can't allow those who burn crosses to get away with murder, or it could encourage more of them to enter law enforcement. Rage Against the Machine's anti-authoritarian themes may resonate today even more than they did when they were written.
Well, maybe you should have gotten out of the way when you were told. Next question.
Another major theme that Rage is known for is their opposition to the military-industrial complex. For decades, the U.S. has been involved in the corruption and overthrow of numerous governments all over the globe. Typically, these are countries that are very poor. We offer boatloads of cash to politicians from these countries in order to get them to fork over their resources for next to nothing at the detriment of their country's population. If the elected officials will not be corrupted, then we overthrow their government and place leaders in power who will continue to sell out their country. It's a very expensive business, and it's paid for through taxes. This is what's discussed on the track Bulls on Parade. In this part of the song, De La Rocha is saying that government leaders are raining terror through the military-industrial complex. He refers to the Pentagon as the Fistagon, and says that our military involvement, paid for through our taxes, is destroying our environment. In the chorus, he points out the hypocrisy of politicians claiming they support family values, while at the same time supporting endless wars. Weapons, not food, not hope, not shoes, not need The second verse points out that the government delegates billions of taxpayer dollars to war, but very little to supporting its citizens. Most of the time, the general public is completely unaware of where their taxes are being spent. Let's look at our current spending. At the time of writing this, the US spends more on its military than the next 7 countries combined. In April of 2019, the US defense budget was $649 billion. Many people think that we can't afford to invest in ourselves, and that taxpayer dollars should not be spent on taxpayers. This is what many politicians, industry leaders, and media outlets have spent hundreds of millions of dollars attempting to convince the public of. If taxes are spent on ourselves, the question is always, where's the money coming from? But nobody ever asks where the $649 billion is coming from to pay for our military involvement around the world. With the military escalation in the Middle East in early 2020, Bulls on Parade has never been more relevant. Many people are angry. Outrage is rampant throughout our society. With Rage Against the Machine coming back to tour in 2020, I expect them to give a focal point to that anger. There are lots of distractions, but it's important to remember that immigrants are not your problem. A tweet from 2010 is not your problem. Greta Thunberg is not your problem. Stay focused on what really matters and point your rage at the machine.
We were inspired because we feel that any society or any government or any system that is set up solely to profit a wealthy class, while the majority of the people toil and suffer and sell their labor power, so long as that system's only true motive is profit interest and not the maintenance and betterment of the population to meeting human needs, then that society should not stand. It should be challenged and questioned and overthrown.
What impact do you think Rage Against the Machine will have on the year 2020? Leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe for more music-related content. If you'd like to help us create more videos like this, consider donating to our Patreon. Thanks so much for watching, and keep an eye out for more content coming soon.